public interest in the world of radio-controlled flight has reached an all-time search engine historic low, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. Here's the top 14 things killing the RC flying hobby today. Number 1. Boomers who refuse change. Number 2. Rule Nazis insisting that everybody go through a full written and flying exam before they're allowed to fly at the local AMA field. You must be fully checked out to fly your harmless foamy. Meanwhile, the old-timer Chuck, who has 76 years of experience with 0 flight hours since forgetting his name, can fly at the field no problem since he's friends with the president, despite crashing into the only obstacle in a mile radius every flight he takes. Or the safety officer that spends their entire day at the field sitting behind the flight line, telling people what they should be doing while they're flying. A little bit of common sense and communication goes a lot further than a giant rulebook. Think of getting people into this hobby as a funnel. You want to reduce the bar for entry as low as possible to draw in as many people as you can. Requiring new pilots to take a test to fly their hunk of foam is just giving them another reason to walk away from the hobby. Newcomers or new types of flying are often treated as a scapegoat to any problems a club has with safety. Number 3. The few moments and events that would draw the public into our hobby aren't covered and promoted enough. There is usually practically zero coverage of the best flying events. We as a community should focus on highlighting the coolest parts of the hobby in hope of showing people why we enjoy it so much, and how they can too. Sure, there are the more popular events like Joe Null, Flight Fest, Bigfoot, you name it. However, there are a lot that are hidden gems at amazing RC fields and flying sites that should be getting more coverage but go unnoticed. Working to find new and modern ways to advertise toy airplane events is a must. Number 4. DJI quads or drones are a competing hobby, one that allows us to capture the cool moments and share them nearly effortlessly. It's a great hobby, but lots of people interested in flight often go the DJI turnkey route over flying RC planes. In our opinion, this is primarily because they offer a much lower bar for entry, not to mention significantly more coverage of them on the internet. Ironically, this can also come up to bite us as Jimothy takes up his new DJI a few nose beers deep and flies over the Las Vegas Strip. Pro tip, the any exposure is good exposure rule doesn't apply to the FAA or when you're picking up your child from preschool. DJI drones have been lumped into the same category as our RC planes. They're two vastly different things and should be regulated separately. On the flip side, the drone boom can help the hobby too, especially the DJI market. In some cases, the folks that fly these realize they have just consumed the gateway drug into the world of RC. Lots of DJI drone pilots eventually get the bug to want to actually fly an aircraft rather than direct one with a smart controller that suddenly avoids obstacles and then, randomly, automatically crashes into your garage. Number 5. With the growth of developed land and not in my backyard folks, there are becoming fewer and fewer places to fly legally. As an example, think of the full-scale airports being shut down because some rich snob moved in below the final approach corridor, signed papers when they moved in that they knew the airport was there and has been for 100 plus years, and then complained endlessly about it and the airport shut down. The same thing is happening in RC, with developments encroaching on existing flying fields, or neighbors complaining that your turbo timber is too loud or endangers their emotional support camel. The result, fewer folks being exposed to the gift of RC flight. This combined with guaranteed and promised flying sites becoming more about gatekeeping than open doors, and you create an ever-shrinking niche. Our solution? Follow what the FTCA is doing and encourage folks to push the FAA to allow us to continue safely flying our park flyers where we always have been into the ongoing future. If it was working fine and safely before, what changed overnight to suddenly make it dangerous? Number 6. Local hobby shops becoming a thing of the past. There's a lot of reasons for this, but primarily, they're being kicked out of the space by online shopping, which offers a far more convenient experience for most folks alongside with unbeatable prices. Most of us who have been in the hobby for a while can vividly remember their parents taking them to a hobby shop for the first time and coming home with our first plane. The excitement of going to the hobby shop was the equivalent of a kid waking up on Christmas morning or an adult going to Costco to see what new products were on the shelves. I mean, even my first job as a kid was working at a hobby shop. With online stores replacing hobby shops, though, this hands-on experience will be a thing of the past, which in turn reduces the amount of youth excited about the hobby, because clicking 2 buttons on the internet isn't a memory, it's just a transaction. Number 7. Mainstream companies pumping out exclusively cheaply made planes that don't last cheapens everyone's experience. While high-end stuff has been raising the bar in quality year after year, mid-range and beginner-focused models are approaching an all-time quality low. Look at our reviews. I don't think we put out one that didn't have an incorrectly sized part, broken item, or other issues upon receiving it. On the bright side, though, a majority of the companies in the RC space will happily replace any defective items you have, but when you order a plane and it says it'll arrive Monday, you hope you can fly it by Tuesday, instead of having to wait until the following week for a maiden because your plane didn't come with wing bolts and you have to wait for your parts to arrive. Number 8. The elitism experienced by a significant amount of the community. Every month, a new feature or gadget gets introduced that you have to have, like telemetry readings. Sir, my old school stopwatch works fine, thanks. There's zero reason to need to use telemetry to know your battery level if you don't want to in flight. It's not just about the flashiest gadgets, though. The elitism can also be seen through the shame you feel when you show up to the field with a plane that, well, isn't pretty. This is because you fear that people will assume your flying skills based on the condition of your aircraft. Our solution? Don't assume. It makes an ass out of you and me. These same people will rain on the new kid's parade as well. Sample scenario. New kid. I just got my first plane. Elitist grumpy dude. Hey, that's nothing, kid. When I learned how to fly, I learned at a 69cc nitrogen-powered plane that I built with my 9 fingers. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
Okay.
Okay?
Are you?
Absolutely.
Number 9. On that topic, the cost of repairs and replacement parts can add up quickly. Let's face it, crashes happen, and when they do, it can be expensive to repair or replace broken parts. This can be discouraging for beginners who are still learning how to fly. It's important to offer support and guidance to new pilots so they don't feel like they're in it alone. But there's also a component here that we haven't talked about. Some hot glue and boiling water can turn a pile of foam into a plane that flies just fine again post-crash. Just because you bent the nose doesn't mean it's time to purchase a new plane. You'd be surprised at what some members of our community have been able to bring back to life post-crash. Number 10. The hobby can be intimidating for beginners due to the technical jargon and terminology used. Terms like ESC, gyro, and rudder can be confusing for someone who's just starting out. Replacing them with things like speed controller, cheater tool, and misunderstood control surface are much more digestible terms for the beginner. We all know the guy who talks to new people using all the more intricate terms and especially stupid acronyms that no one knows or uses in real human conversation. Don't make newbies feel even more intimidated. Help teach them, and don't get cocky and feel like you have to show off about how much you know. Number 11. It's cost prohibitive. I don't think we need to expand on this one. If you're in this hobby, you probably can't recite a rough number that you've spent on it, but you could probably estimate how much commas. Once again though, don't be that guy who brags to friends about how much you spent on the hobby. It's really not a good look. Number 12. Kids started skipping out on outdoor hobbies like a radio control and moved indoors towards screen-based ones. There's really not much we can do about this one. It's just one of the many reasons why youth are harder and harder to spot at RC fields. We can only hope that introducing these same gamer boys to simulators like Aerofly, Real Flight, Microsoft Flight Sim, you name it, can spark some form of an interest in going to the actual flying field to try it IRL, as the gamers say. Number 13. Regulation. When does remote ID go into effect? What the hell is a FRIA? What is the legal standing of the 400-foot altitude restriction, and when can you exceed it? How many nautical miles are you from your closest airport? What's a CBO? Has your flying ever interfered with the operation of a full-scale aircraft? That last question is probably the only one you can answer confidently, and your answer is no. Even if your particular flying situation has been unaffected by the increasing regulation of the FAA in the last 10 years, the constant threat of it putting an end to your flying sight is something that many of us never even thought about when this hobby was in its heyday. It's infuriating that the FAA draws no distinction between RC models, FPV, and GPS-assisted camera drones flown by people with one brain cell. And it seems like every year we are asked to write our congresspeople and ask them to oppose a draconian bill that would effectively kill the hobby as we know it. Regardless of whether we need regulation, having to hear constant bad news about it is really exhausting. Number 14. Overcomplication. Nowadays, the hobby is more complex than ever, with a wide range of radio brands including Spectrum, Futaba, JR, High-Tech, FR Sky, Radiomaster, FlySky, Orange TX, and many more knockoff options. These brands offer various receivers, protocols, prop styles, speed controllers, servos, and connectors. The variety allows for diverse activities in the hobby, but it can be perplexing for newcomers and challenging for retailers to satisfy everyone's needs. And finally, number 15. Wives taking away our credit cards. Enough said. Look, we proposed a lot of problems, and not a ton of solutions, but that's because this is a deeper problem than two guys you watch on YouTube can solve. Let this video serve as a forum in which our community can discuss solutions below. Sure, we made some jokes, but there's one thing that should be taken seriously: the direction our hobby is headed if no changes occur. If you believe that you shouldn't be allowed to fly if you can't make it to the flight line without assistance, go ahead and give this video a like. If you think Alex Jones should be the new head of the FAA, maybe even hit subscribe. Happy landings and bounce one on for us. We'll catch you next week with a new upload.